patience for God's people. Of course, we often hear messages, sermons, devotionals on patience, and of course, it's throughout the Bible too. What I'm about to read comes from this book right here. I found this to be an awesome book right here. Yeah, of course, written by Dr. David Jeremiah. And what I'm reading comes from page 184. During the Reagan administration, Richard Nixon was interviewed about the subject of peace in the world. He was asked whether the nation was better off than it had been 1 year previously. Nixon replied, "As Americans, we have many great strengths, but one of our weaknesses is impatience." Don't worry, I'm among one of the millions who struggle with patience. Sometimes I tell people if I had any patience, I'd be a doctor. Anyways, continuing on. As Richard Nixon, as he replied, continuing, he said, "The Russians think in terms of decades, the Chinese in terms of centuries. Americans think in terms of years, months, and days." Now, and there's so many Americans, both Christian and non, that think of in terms of less than days, like hours, minutes, and even seconds. Don't worry, I'm guilty of it too. Someone said that patience has a bitter taste, but a sweet aftertaste. I wonder if any of us would labor with the steadfastness of some of the great Christian missionaries of the past, or have the commitment of their boards and overseers who hung in there with them. When the gospel was brought to Western Africa by missionaries, 14 years passed before a single convert came to faith. It required 10 years in Eastern Africa and 16 years in Tahiti to win the first soul. William Carey is considered the father of the modern missions movement, yet it took him 7 years to convert his first Hindu. And another person says right here, Adon Niram Judson, or however you pronounce their name, said America's first missionary. He labored 6 years before he baptized the first Burmese believer. More patient than his supporting churches, he once wrote home, "Begged the churches to have patience. Success is as certain as the promise of a faithful God can make it." Let me read that again. Beg the churches to have patience. Success is as certain as the promise of a faithful God can make it. In all those places, the aftertaste of patience was sweet because workers for Christ and their sponsors knew how to wait upon the Lord and trust His timetable. Difficult? Absolutely. But patience is God's classroom for instructing us in faith and obedience. If we didn't have so much to learn, perhaps we wouldn't have so long to wait. We want to do well in this course of instruction. Let's learn what the Word of God has to teach us about waiting, trusting, and hoping. And a good bit of that is in the New Testament. And earlier when I read this as part of my daily devotionals, when I was doing my daily devotionals for the day, I remember the paralytic man on some guy back in the biblical days. He was around when Jesus was on earth, in the well. He spent 38 years trying to get to that well. 38 years, that's almost 4 decades. That's almost as long as I've been around. I'm 45 years old. Yeah, about just under 40 years, this paralytic had been trying to get to this well. It's like this angel comes down from heaven to stir up the waters, the healing waters. And he said that every time he tries to get to the well, somebody beats him to it and gets healed. And so, he'd been doing this, but he just never gave up. Was it hard? I bet. I'm sure he'd been impatient, probably been extremely frustrated, and just in total anguish. But it's like the man never gave up. When Jesus, of course, if anybody wants to have an objection to what I'm speaking here, they want to say like, well, times back then were different. Yeah, true that, but still, Jesus, uses this as an illustration of patience. And man, because I'm sure even people back then, could have easily given up. So therefore, we can learn from the past. But after 38 years, Jesus realized that that man had enough. He'd been trying to get to the healing waters for about 4 decades or so. Went ahead and put him in there. But that takes faith, and so many of us, we can actually get impatient just after 4 years, or after 38 days or even 38 minutes. And I like how what Richard Nixon said about kind of patience, that when he spoke about patience, how Russia sees in terms of decades and how China sees in terms of centuries, but we see in terms of years. And I believe that most of us Americans are seeing in times of just weeks and days and even hours. So of course I would not only would I pray for God's people and everyone else to work on patience, but I pray for it for myself, because I'm guilty of it too. Every so often I'll make a devotional video like this one about patience. I struggle with it. Yeah, but I'm still trying to work on it. I bet you'll probably be working on it the rest of my life, but I still keep asking the Lord to help me to have patience. And I jokingly tell people at times, if I had any patience, I'd be a doctor. I got that from somebody else, but yeah, so therefore I pray for myself and pray for all of you out there struggling with patience, which could be most of y'all who's watching this video. Pray for you too. The Lord helps us with patience. Now, of course, nobody wants something to take several decades, but still, we still learn how to have patience. Did Daniel tell you want to be in the video? Jump up. Come on. Jump up here. Jump up. Come on. There you go. Well, the video is finished. So, well, see you next video. Oh, by the way, it was his birthday yesterday. Say hi to everybody, Daniel Tiger. Say happy birthday to everybody. Everybody say happy birthday to Daniel Tiger.